Let me tell you about the story of Job.
Job chapter 1, verse 1. There was a man in the land of Uz, whose name was Job. Uz means God's counsel. Name means a person's fame, and Job meant hated. There was a man in the land of Uz, whose name was Job. You put it all together and you get the reputation of the man in the land of God's counsel will be called hated. Isn't that the truth?
So here's this guy. He loves God. God's blessed him with this beautiful family. This beautiful family, it's unbelievable. He just, and every day, he's so grateful. Every day he comes out and he just prays and he gives sacrifices, thanking God just in case, worried that, maybe their kids aren't as focused on their passion and relationship with the Lord than himself. He loved God, right? And he was blessed because of it. And one day in the heavens, what happens is the sons of God, they show up before, the Lord, which we know there's a deeper meaning to all of this, not important right now. And among them comes Satan. It means adversary, accuser. Always shows up with the sons of God right there in the midst. And they talk about Job.
And the Lord said to Satan, Hast thou considered my servant, that there is none like him in the earth, a perfect and upright man, one that fears God and abstains from evil?
God's servant, Job, which is important to point out because that's all Job wanted to do. So, long story short, up in the heavens, Satan says, you protected this guy, and so he's, really, he hasn't cursed you, but really, look at him. He hasn't gone through much. He's got a beautiful family. His life's all right. You say that this is the guy that loves you, and yet I haven't messed with him. You haven't let me loose on the dude, see where he stands, come down. I'll come over, I'll throw a bunch of temptation his way. I'll get him thinking something, I'll take everything from him. His beautiful family, I'll have his kids turn it. I'll have all of his friends condemn him. I'll have all of his friends come in and really make this guy question whether or not he ever served you. That's what Satan says to God, and God's like, okay, all right, bet, you're on, dude. Because he knows that this is all part of the story because the creator of all created all to begin with.
The instant God took away his hedge of protection, Satan went to work. He destroyed everything he could. One of Job's servants screamed, The fire of God has fallen from heaven, has burned up the sheep and the servants, and consumed them. Everything God blessed Job with all of a sudden was taken away. The fire of God. Satan here actually is called God's fire. Very interesting. The fire of God that fell from heaven.
Job loses his family. He loses a bunch of finance. He ends up deathly ill. And everything that he had, everything that he thought God blessed him with, he did everything right. He crossed all the, he crossed all his T's, checked all the boxes, did everything right. But yet, he's losing everything now. And all of his children ended up dying. Yeah, they ended up dying. It's pretty terrible. His stock of all of his animals and his flock, And then he ends up sick. That's right. He ends up with this terrible boil, and he's in his bed, and he's in pain all the time. So much so that they go through such hard times that Job's wife is like, okay, dude, Mr. I serve the Lord, Mr. God has a plan for me, right? Look at you, you're suffering, you got big welts all over your face. Can't pay the bills, we lost all of our family, God's turned his back on you. And Job is like all messed up on his bed. Probably in his darkest moments thinking, yeah, I did something wrong. He's thinking about all those times that, he looked at the wrong thing or thought about the wrong thing or acted the wrong way. And he's thinking he's being punished probably, right? But Job says, the Lord God gives and he takes away.
Naked I came from my mother's womb, naked I return to the womb of the earth. God gives, God takes. God's name be blessed forever. Not once through all this did Job sin. Not once did he blame God. That's important.
Because he understood that just because he served God, just because he did everything, and just because his life was so grand, that, is he still going to serve God after everything's going? Well, why wouldn't he? Think about that for a second. Does it matter what you have in the natural? Does it matter what you have in the temporal? Does any of this matter? In the grand scheme of things, you're all going to die. We're all dying physically. So what does it matter what you lose if, the only thing that matters is the one thing that Job was holding on to in his darkest moment. And that is knowing that God has a purpose for everything. That, as the scriptures say, all things work together for the good of those that love the Lord. I love the Lord. Job screams, just like me. I love the Lord. I know I'm not perfect. I love the Lord. Oh, please, Lord, look after my kids. Change this one's heart. Help this one with that. Do this. Boom, boom, boom. And God always, always answers these prayers. But there was a time when I lost everything. There was a time when I lost my home. There was a time like Job when everything was great. I was working for Christian television. I had a beautiful home. Before Christian TV, I gave up on I thought I did at least, because I knew that God was in control. I know now that where I am right now is exactly where I'm meant to be. That I really had no part in playing. I just kind of was a willing servant. And yeah, just like Job, I served God, made prayers, and what ended up happening was my first wife ended up taking off. I lost everything. My kids were in a bad way. But yet, I never gave up. I ended up sick. I was in and out of the hospital. I was living in a small little apartment. How am I going to take care of my kids? I had a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. Here's a guy who was the head writer for Christian TV, right? Going through a divorce. Everybody's thinking, oh, God hates divorce. You're the guy that's always talking about your relationship with the Lord and all them, right? Looking at me, saying in the back of their hearts, they're going, aha, look at you. And yet, the whole time I was serving God, I wanted to serve God. I didn't know why things went the way they did. But I just knew that God had a plan and a purpose for it. And so when I lost my home, I said, all right, Lord, you took my home, what else? And when I lost my kids, I said, all right, Lord, you took my kids, what else? I didn't give up. I didn't give up. I had faith, and I knew that God was going to give and God could take away. But because I knew the story of Job, and if you know the story of Job, you understand that no matter how hard things were and how much he lost in the beginning, he got back double in return. I want to find that next step. I want to know what the Lord has planned next. I've lost everything, and I've been blessed doubly. Now I have custody of my children. I got custody of my children. After everything I lost, with nothing, no money in my bank, no nothing. And it would make no sense for me to be able to get custody of my children. It would make no sense, and yet I had a dream. And I have this dream, and I'm like, all right, I get it. All right, Lord, you're going to take care of everything. And in the dream, somebody was there and blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to get into it, but that's what ended up happening. And within a short period of time, I ended up with custody of my children. And the best part is then I moved to Long Island so that, because of course that's their mother. And I'm not going to inhibit anything because I encouraged it. I've been very, very supportive. I still am. A lot of people would do the opposite. But yet, God has a plan for everything, and God brings us where we're supposed to be, and everybody that's been in my life is there for a reason, has gotten me to where I am right now. So because of the pain that I suffered in the past and all these things, they, too, to me, deserve my respect and deserve my admiration and my compassion and my thankfulness. Grateful. I'm grateful for all the hard times. Just like Job must have been grateful when he had double the blessing that he had ever had before. New family, right? Not that the first was lost, but this is an allegory. This is an allegory, was because the first part of my life, I really thought that I had something to do with it. I thought that I was the one. I was the guy that got myself to WWE because I knew God had a plan, but I was the one that did it. I was the guy that was going to get my own TV show. I knew God had a plan, but it was me that did it. I was the guy that was going to be at Christian TV, but, I knew God had a plan, but it was me that did it. Until I've realized now, I'm 48 years old. And this YouTube channel, all of this right here is proof. I didn't do any of this. I didn't do any of this. I'm just trying to make this as great as I know that it's supposed to be, because I believe that there's a point to all this. There's a point to my suffering. There's a point to your suffering. There's a point. There's a point, and that's why it's so important to want to serve the Lord, because that's all that Job wanted to do. He wasn't a perfect man. That's all that he wanted to do. He wanted to serve. He wanted to serve God, and God is love. He wanted to serve love. He wanted to love. He wanted to be kind. He wanted to do the right thing, and I want to do the right thing too. So I want you all to take a moment to look at your lives. And if you're going through a hard time, understand that it's probably there for a reason. It's probably happening for a reason. And if it is, amen. Because just like when I lost everything, just like when I, was collecting cans at a certain point, collecting cans, I knew it was for a reason. All of my children's furniture was donated to me. Oh my goodness, the apartment that I lived above this lady, it was just this crazy lady. Oh man, I used to clean I cleaned the house. I cleaned the house to save on the rent. I did the yard work to save on the rent. Oh my goodness. To think of those times, and yet I knew God was with me. I didn't know I'd be here. How many years later? It's 13, 14 years later. Didn't know I'd be here. In and out of the hospital. Intestines ripped out, bleeding internally. Everybody set against me. And then here I am. Here I am with all of you. It's the story of Job. It's your story too. In any event, listen, I was just feeling good about everything. And I was also feeling like, you know what? Because as I look on YouTube and I'm always searching, and I mean, look, I may not come across as the best, theological teacher, right? I may not exactly tell you exactly how you should believe and tell you this is the truth. And I may drink out of a Uranus as a planet mug, which you should support the channel if you want. But I know one thing. I know why I'm doing this. And I'm grateful that you're all along for the ride. This is a good time for me to bring up Blake. You all know Blake, right? He was a longtime fan of the channel, viewer, supporter of the channel. He was somebody that I became friends with. He ended up going to jail, made a mistake, right? But not a mistake that he should have ended up that way. And, he's been there for 2 years. And somehow, when I talked to him the first time, I've shared this before, because I saw in the comment section, he said, Jacob, I know this is weird, but I really need to talk to you. And I felt like I should get involved with this guy. And so I got his email, and he gave me his number, and I called the guy up, of course, from a private line, because I don't know who he is really. I didn't know him. I knew him from, the chat, but let's be real, right? Well, that was 2 years ago. He told me his story. He shouldn't have ended up being in here. He shouldn't have. I mean, this was something that was this is ridiculous. You make a mistake when you're very, very young, and it kind of haunts you. And so, long story short, I talked to about this a little while ago. I said, looked like all hope was lost, but then some kind of a miracle. And every step of the way, I've been there. Always waiting, when is this guy going to get out? When's my buddy Blake? Because I give the, whatever, I spend money talk to him. I said, look, man, you're in there. Because I think to myself, he's in there, right? He's a fan of the channel. That's a good way for me to communicate to him, be encouragement to him, get him to maybe encourage them. It's kind of like, this is why we should do things like this, kind of reach out to other people. Well, all hope wasn't lost. Turns out the lawyers, we raised some money. All of you went and you did his GoFundMe, and we raised enough money for them to look at the case. They looked at the case and they're like, boom, this is it. This is done. And they're going to file. They're about to file in January. Long story short, they got to pay for it somehow, right? So there's a GoFundMe link. It's going to be at the, in the description. Click on it. Read about it. And Blake's part of this show. He's been part of the story, and I've kind of, in my mind, kind of believed that we'd all... that he'd come on the show here, because really it's one of those things where this is just, we're all acting out in faith, and really what happened shouldn't have happened. And the lawyers, they looked at it, and from what Blake and his wife, and he has a child too, tell me, it looks like there was a lot of negligence, and this shouldn't have happened the way it did. So long story short, read about it. I think they even incorporated their legal team in the comments somewhere. And, support him, help him out, help the guy get out. Wouldn't that be great? We all help somebody get out of jail who I've gotten to know. I can vouch. How do you vouch for somebody? I've never met him in person, right? But I've talked to him, and I've gotten to know his heart. And I'd like to see him. I'd like to see him on this show. I'd like to see him thanking all of you. Because one way or another, whatever God's will is, God's will. Right? It's the story of Job. That's the whole thing. It's his story too. He had everything, beautiful family, and one night, and then all of it, it's crazy. Crazy. I love each and every one of you. Thank you very much for taking the time to listen. And if you do appreciate the channel, tell your friends. Share it around. Tell your friends. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching Jacob Israel. Please hit that like button, leave a comment, subscribe, and share this channel around. If these shows have helped you, help Jacob to reach more any way you can, and have the best day ever.